Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Bridgestone MB-6 that I found in the recycling about a month ago in a local town on their trash day. Dragged it home with a flat tire and while I was walking my dog, and went soup to nuts, and here's the finished product. So join me. I'm going to explain sort of how I came to my decisions on this, what I think it's for, a little bit about Bridgestone, a little bit about what I did, some challenges that I had, but come along. So here it is. This is the Bridgestone MB-6. I'm thinking this is maybe towards the later part of Bridgestone's run here in America. Bridgestone has this sort of famous folklorish niche in bicycle history for bike dorks here. Made really nice bikes, sold them in America. There was this real period of time when it was under the direction in America of Grant Peterson, who sort of had this idea of how bikes should be, very much like moving away from racing, bikes as sort of everyday tools that you can do all kinds of stuff with. And as a result, some of the bikes that you find from Bridgestone have these little interesting sort of ahead of their time features for the 90s. A lot of tire clearance, even for a mountain bike. Either road bikes had a lot of tire clearance. I refurbished an RB2 a while ago that you could fit 35s in there, 35 centimeter 700C tires. That was unheard of unless you get back to like the 70s, 1970s Japanese road bikes. You can kind of do that with those. But anyways, so Grant Peterson sort of oversaw this real sort of golden age of Bridgestone in America. He left when Bridgestone sort of packed up shop in America in the 90s, mid-90s, early to mid-90s. He started Rivendell Bicycle Company, which is sort of like holy grail for bike dorks of certain persuasions. I think they sort of continued what he wanted Bridgestone to be. He ended up sort of realizing that vision fully with Rivendell. Big, comfortable bikes, steel rim brakes, tons of tire clearance, big long chain stays, things like that. But this MB-6 was part of the MB line mountain bike. It was the last one in line. You had the MB1, the MB Zip, which was sort of like, you can't really find those very commonly anymore. MB1, really nice bike. I refurbished one a while ago, very nice. Up through the MB6, which is sort of the, had lower end components on it, more basic entry level kind of thing. I think that's the reason why I had another MB6 that I sold this summer. I had it with drop bars and bar end shifters and stuff. It was really cool. But the MB6 being sort of the value leader, the cheap bike that you'd find in a bike shop, I think that's the reason there's more of them that you come across, more of the MB6, MB5, that kind of thing. But geometry is the same as the other ones. This is triple butted Tange MTB steel. It's nice, not particularly light. And then once you get everything on here, it's obviously not a light bike. But had a real nice time with this one. A couple challenges was it had this Suntour Express. Well, let me show you the handlebar that came with it. Look at this weird thing. I did a little YouTube short with it, but it's got this like adjustable handlebar that pops out, and I don't know what's going on here. It's got kind of a bull moose thing that this moves, so you can adjust the angle there. Ginormous bell. Still works. And it had these Suntour Express power control shifters. These are from like the latter day of Suntour, before they went the way of the Dodo. But I've set these up before. They do kind of work nice. It's like a very basic, intuitive system where you push and pull. But for people that are brought up on, Shimano with trigger shifters or anything else, it can be a little tough. The cable is the weird thing. It's got this little round lollipop that it requires that you can only get with like an ultra cheapy cable and wire set from like Walmart, the Bell wire cable and wire set. That has an option for the little lollipop thing for the Suntour thing, so I hope they never stop making those. I may rebuild this for another build. Really nice levers here. I like this kind of bulge. I don't know, it's kind of neat. But I have no idea what's going on with these handlebars, so that was the first thing that I was going to swap out. And speaking of swapping, this has mostly donor parts from another bike that I found. This was by a bike trail, it's just left there. Trek 7000 aluminum. Now, as you can see, it's got kind of a fatal hit here. It's aluminum, it's got this big dent in the chainstay. You know, a dent with steel is not a big deal, but a dent with aluminum kind of freaks me out a little bit. Plus, like, I can only imagine what this does to the alignment of the wheel, things like that. So very quickly I decided this was going to be a donor for something. But the one thing that I didn't use that I thought was pretty cool, obviously I can't because this is 26-inch 700C, but this is this rigid steel cantilever boss fork with not only the boss for racks on the fork blade, but it's got the two-sided one. So there's a special Blackburn rack. I have a pair. I have one that it has two things that come out, two stays that come out that attach there. So a lot of old Cannondale touring bikes had them. They were kind of specific, so they don't really work with other, you know, the boss that's just on one side of the blade. But since this goes all the way through, it's kind of neat. And it's 25.4 threaded, which is sort of like one of those weird transition sizes before they went threadless with everything. So it actually kind of fits. It'll fit some more modern bikes if you wanted to go rigid, that kind of thing. But I don't know. We'll see. It's going to the side for a while. So I took the track apart and I replaced the crank. The brakes, I went with V-brakes on this one. I usually wouldn't, if I have a bike with cantilever brakes, I usually keep the cantilever brakes. I decided not to. I went with the V-brakes from the Trek. I said, why not? Because it's got the stopper here. It's got the cable stop on the top tube that allows you to do that full housing that's required by the V-brakes. They work great. And the, I'll show you. It's got that cool, I was just being selfish. I wanted to keep the Diacomp XCM. It's got that cool adjustment thing where you adjust the spring tension with a wrench instead of with a little screw on the side. It's really cool. So I'm sort of going all over the place here, but triple crank set. That's the only thing I was a little disappointed with, was I didn't have a better triple to replace the Suntour triple that was on there. It was a 110 BCD, but I've kind of run out of decent 110 BCD chain rings. Obviously, the first thing you think is, oh my God, 1X, you know, could I do a 1-by on this one? But I would have had to spring for a larger cassette in the back, and this is a freewheel. This is not a cassette, so it's a screw-on freewheel. So that really limits you. It limits you to one of those like Mega Range 34T freewheels in the back. And I was like, I don't know. You could do 34, that's 1-to-1 range. I don't know. So I just decided to keep it a triple. So I've got 3 in the front with the Suntour crank set. It's got steel stamped chain rings, but it's good. The chain was good on the Trek, so I figured the chain rings are good. And it's a brand new freewheel that I had. I had ordered a freewheel years ago for something. It got lost in the mail or something, so they ended up sending me another one. But then the one that got lost in the mail got found, so I ended up with an extra. So that kind of worked. The adjustment that I had to do with the bottom bracket required some help from an old friend of mine. Sheldon Brown. I think I've sung his praises before on the channel here. He's a guy that worked at a bike shop not too far from here in Newton, Massachusetts. And he put together this, he ended up passing away years ago, but he had put together this sort of like encyclopedic reference of like how everything with a bicycle works, including all kinds of charts, compatibilities, lengths, measurements, things like that, how to do conversions of things, and all this like database of information on how to measure chains, how to chain line, correct chain line for things like that. It's still a resource that I use all the time. Sheldon Brown, like just look it up, and tells you literally everything you need to know. So I had the 110 BCD triple, mountain triple for this. The Trek had a cartridge bottom bracket for this Sun Torch crankset. It was a 73 millimeter, so it's not going to fit on this Bridgestone, which is a 68 millimeter bottom bracket shell. So I had to like kind of figure it out, but the length of the spindle doesn't really change. It was like 122.5 or something like that for the Trek. So I just needed to figure out the conversion, because cup and cone spindles, which is what this is, the old school where you take it apart, those spindles are like sort of like they're longer on one side than they are on the other, whereas the cartridge ones are usually like symmetrical, the jut. So there's a little bit of conversion that happens, and luckily Sheldon has a chart that told me to go from a 122 for the 73 millimeter 7000 Trek spindle to a 120 or 119 for the Bridgestone. And luckily I have bins full of old spindles, things like that. Found one and it works perfectly. It gave me a perfect chain line of 45, which you measure from the center of the tube to the middle chain ring on a triple. And Shimano recommended chain line is 45. What that does is it kind of makes sure that you're not too cross-chaining when you're shifting, that when you're in the middle gear in the front, you're in the middle gear in the back, that it's pretty parallel. It just ensures good shifting, ensures the front derailleur is going to work correctly. It's not going to be rubbing in all kinds of weird combinations, that kind of thing, and also with the small ring and the big ring. So having that measurement down, I trusted Sheldon, of course, and it worked. And it's got this ginormous seat. This comes from the Trek as well. It's a Bontrager. It's huge. It's kind of like, bike dorks usually don't recommend these. The bigger, cushier saddle sometimes can be uncomfortable over longer rides. This one's not bad. I don't know. I mean, for just putting around town or bike path kind of thing, I'm going with it because I'm running out of like spare saddles. A lot of builds I've done recently. I'm getting down to the point where it's saddles that I don't want to give up, because this is not going to be my bike. It's too small for me. This is like a size 19. If you go from the center up to the center of the top tube, it's a 19, which would make it like medium large in mountain bike parlance sizing from back in the 90s. If you go to the top where the C-post insertion point is, it's a 20, which is more my size, but Bridgestone also had very small head tubes, I find. The old the MB-6 that I did have it was more of like a 22-inch, and it had a bigger head tube, gave you a little more rise, that kind of thing. But it's neither here nor there. So everything went back together nice. What else here? I did all new grease in the wheel hubs. Everything kind of came back nice together. The headset, this stem is from my bins to replace that abomination over there. The shifters and the brake levers are both from the Trek. The handlebar was from my bins. It just seems like a little kind of wide. What I was hoping for was like a cruiser bar. I like those, but it wasn't in the cards. I just don't have one, and I didn't want to spend a dime. I did not spend 1 cent on this build. This was all from the bins. I even refurbished the pedals, which is sort of like unusual for me. I usually kind of look at pedals as disposable items, but I took them apart. Those little stupid bearings, you get them everywhere, but I was able to get them all back together, nice and fresh. Sometimes if you just drip a little oil down there, that'll buy you some time. And this rack, this Linus rack, I had this on another bike. I don't know, it's a little frumpy for me, a little big. I'm more of a walled rack kind of guy. It's kind of big, kind of heavy. No matter, everything is tight on this, but it's still kind of like rattles sometimes when you go over bumps. But it's nice enough, and it's got a cup holder, which is cool. Seat post is original. How does it ride? It rides really nice. It rides like a, like a 90s mountain bike. You hear a lot of talk these days of 90s mountain bikes. They go quick. I'm going to try to sell this bike, and it'll probably sell quick. They're versatile. They're easy to work on. They're easy to ride, not complicated. I get the obsession with the 90s mountain bikes. There's sort of an era of, on the one hand, simplicity. It was still sort of more related to old bikes than it was to like new mountain bikes, disc brakes, hydraulics, drop posts, all that, new geometry. But at the same time, it's like, okay, am I going to use this as a mountain bike on like single track? Yeah, you could, but I don't know. A modern mountain bike blows it out of the water. It really does. Different in every way. You're still pedaling a bike with gears, but it's that's about where the similarities end. It's no comparison. You'll be under biking whatever trail you go on if you go on a trail. So it does ride nice. It's nice and smooth. Steel is real. All that jazz. It's got big slick tires on it. Not slicks, but like, I don't know, semi-slick, I guess you'd call it. They're not anything high quality. They're just wire bead. I've had them for years on different builds. I had them on that Mongoose that I did that build on. I switched out some newer knobbies for that. Nothing crazy on this build. But it all just kind of works, including the grip shifters. And I stand in defense of grip shifters. I don't love them. I don't really choose them for my bikes, but I don't get the hate either. I think that people's sort of disdain for grip shifters stems from an inability to work on them. I've seen people say, they're just disposable, just throw them out. Like, they're not meant to be worked on. They're so cheap, they don't work right, blah, blah, blah. One is that set up right, I think they work just as good as any other shifting mechanism, particularly the front derailleur. You get more clicks than like a Shimano like trigger shifter triple, where you got to make sure you're dead on, or else you're going to have rubbing, or it's not going to shift down to the granny gear or whatever. This has kind of like it's almost like a semi-friction, where you have multiple clicks. So you have more options depending on where your chain is in the back. In the front, I set it up, it just works. The key is like, the number one tip that I could give you for working on a grip shifter is don't take the shifter off the handlebar. Take the grip, get the grip out, and then pull the shifter out, but leave it on the handlebar. It's just easier that way. If you're holding it in your hand trying to get that cable back in, it's never going to work. Keep the shifter on the handlebar. You pop it out, it's got that little rubber thing, you undo that, you find that little nub, you find the end of the cable, pop that out, and then it takes 2 seconds. Stick the cable back in, make sure it's in the channel on the, you'll find the channel when you open this up. There's not many parts in there. Make sure the little pawl doesn't fall out. Snap it back in, pull the cable nice and taut, and then you're clicking. And I find it for like a 7-speed shifter, you know, it shifts just fine, just fine. As good as anything else, you know, honestly. Sometimes people don't, like, I don't know, like it makes the grip smaller and then I'm kind of shifting when I'm riding, that kind of thing. For this bike, this is sort of, I envision this as sort of like a commuter. It works very well. You know, it's all someone's gonna need. And if someone wants to switch it out, they can easily do that too. But I think grip shifts are sort of unfairly maligned in bicycle dorkdom. I feel like properly set up, they work well. I've said my piece. And it's got this Shimano Tourney derailleur back here, which also gets a lot of hate. But that stuff works great. Works great. I don't know. It's not an 11-speed, you know, micro. Make sure that you don't have much room to play with. It's such a thin margin of error. This is an old 7-speed, you know, clunk, clunk, clunk. You're shifting. It's the Tourney stuff works great. I feel like there's different levels though, like of the Shimano low-end stuff. Like get the best low-end one that you can. The best like low-end Tourney one that looks like it has the most like metal parts, I guess. But they work great, you know. That era, that sort of approach from Shimano just works great. I mean, I have modern stuff from Shimano that works great, but you know, like you get it all together, you get it set up right, and you're good to go. So that's my defensive grip shifts. It rides great. I took it out to get bagels this morning using my new GoPro, which I'm trying to use more of in my videos, my future videos. I hope the footage came out okay. We'll see. But yeah, if you find one of these old Bridgestones, grab it. But I will say, you know, any bike from this era, any 90s mountain bike from any of the reputable manufacturers back then are just as good. I've ridden them all. Diamondback, I mean, great bikes back then. Mongoose, great bikes. You know, Giant, Specialized, Rockhopper, Hard Rock, you know, Stump Jumper or whatever. Nishiki, Univega, like they all made great bikes. They made great 26-inch mountain bikes. And Bridgestone, they command this sort of premium because of the folklore with Grant Peterson, the RB1 and the MB1 and the XO1, you know, kind of thing, ahead of their time kind of bikes. But the rest of them are just bikes. And, you know, this one was free, so that's why it's special to me. But you know, send it on its way, and hopefully the new owner will have many good miles. We live in a city with a lot of colleges here. It's getting towards the start of school, so I'm thinking maybe like, you know, college student, snap this up right away. I'm gonna put it on there cheap because again, I didn't spend any money. I even put the kickstand back on. I think just for like ease of use in this video. So that goes to show like how far I've come in my evolution, is that I'm actually putting a kickstand back on a bike. So thanks for watching. Get out there and ride. And thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.